Hey there, Agile Adventurer. Just a quick question. What if, for the price of a fancy coffee or half a pizza, you could unlock over 700 hours of the best Agile content on the planet? That's audio, video, e-courses, books, presentations, all that you can think of. But you can also join live calls with world-class practitioners and hang out in a flame war-free and AI slop-clean Slack with the sharpest minds in the game. Oh, and yes, you get direct access to me, Vasco, your Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. No, this is not a drill. It's the Scrum Master Toolbox membership. And it's your unfair advantage in the Agile world. So if you want to know more, go check out scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. That's scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. And check out all the goodies we have for you. Do it now. But if you're not doing it now, let's listen to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special bonus episode. Today, we're talking about what it really takes to scale go-to-market from zero to billions. That's right, from zero to billions. And joining me is Chris Degnan, a builder of one of the most iconic revenue engines in enterprise software at Snowflake. And I'm sure many of you have heard that name before. Chris, welcome to the show.
Vasco, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and super excited to talk about the journey.
Absolutely. Also because it's one would say, counterintuitive journey. We'll get to that in a minute. This conversation is grounded in the transformation that Chris describes. Chris and Denise, co-authors, describe in the book, Make It Snow, the journey from early stage chaos to durable, aligned growth forged at Snowflake, an iconic brand in software today. Now, one of the most counterintuitive moves that Chris and Denise pulled off was embedding sales with engineering while Snowflake was still in stealth. So take us to that moment, Chris. What problem were you trying to solve by putting sales next to engineering so early? One would even say counterintuitively early.
So great question, Vasco. So the person, I love to take credit for it, but it was ultimately our initial investor in Mike Spicer from Sutter Hill Ventures. And one of the things that he was really felt it was important, and he said to me coming into Snowflake is, Chris, I don't expect you to sell anything for 2 years, which is a little bit weird for a salesperson. But what I really want you to do is get a ton of feedback and get customers to use the product so that when we come out of stealth mode, we have this world-class product and we have a product that has been tested and we really understand product market fit from that perspective. So that was really the thesis when I joined. And I thought, in all full transparency, I thought maybe there were more customers than there were because there was zero when I joined. And I thought that we would get out as a GA product sooner, and neither one of those came true. So when I joined, we had no customers, and then really it was the intention for me to just get customers to try the product, use it for free, and break it, and they broke it, and they broke it a lot, and to the point where we had to make some material changes to the product before we came out of stealth mode and we're ready to go, become a generally available product.
That's a beautiful story. Also because it tackles one of the things that most people are afraid of, showing an early product to customers. In fact, you were hired to do exactly that. Now, I'm sure that didn't feel easy or problem-free or risk-free. So how did you tackle that? And most importantly, how did you even get the engineers to accept that that was a good idea?
Well, I would say that again, going back to having a strong investor in Mike, he knew that we were going to be competing in the database world. You're competing with the largest companies in the world, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google. Those are huge companies, and so he knew that we had to have product and then get market share before our competition had product and market share. And given that Amazon was really first to market with their cloud data warehouse called Redshift, he was hyper focused on us, building a company that was sustainable. And so going through that, and the founders, when I walked in, I think were like, "Hey, man, I don't know what you're doing here. I'm not sure that this is a good thing." Because as I came in and I started getting customers talking to us, there was a lot of like, "Hey, can we get our hands on it?" And they were super hesitant at first to give access to the product. A little bit to your point, and that took some time. Excuse me. That took us some time to get to a point where we were ready to give just have companies run their business off of it. But it helped me shape our thinking around what the ideal customer profile is, or ICP as we call it. And that was really helpful, and it gave me some time. And it's counterintuitive too to not think about revenue for 2 years. So there's a lot of startups, a lot of founders, a lot of venture capitalists think that, hey man, you've got to show revenue right away. And that was something that Mike Spicer was like, hey, that doesn't matter. That what matters is that we have a product that people cannot live without. And that's what your job is to make happen. And that's kind of how I started building the go-to-market machine.
Yeah. And I think that at this point, it may be important to detail a little bit more. What do you, Chris, mean when you say go-to-market?
Go-to-market is sales. I mean, it's sales and marketing. I mean, that's pretty much it. Is you're trying to build an engine that is a sales team to go out and get customers. Now, for some companies, they start off with a PLG or product-led growth, product that they put out there and people sign up for free. And then there's companies that are like Snowflake, which we were just an enterprise-focused sales team that was just me, and then eventually the sales team that I built out that went out and prospected to these customers. So we focused on just introducing Snowflake when we had no website, and we had I had to have stealth mode on my LinkedIn profile even, and we went out and talked about the theory of what we were building. And then that theory became real as customers tried it, and we learned a lot. But the go-to-market engine was really about getting customers to use the product and then eventually sell them and drive revenue.
And getting customers to use the product is one of the things we talk a lot about in the agile world, right? Like get that feedback early, get the understanding of the customer need in a much more detailed understanding so that you can react to it. Now, you said that go-to-market is sales and marketing. But in many organizations, sales and marketing are actually different organizations. In the book, though, Make It Snow book, you make a bold claim. You say alignment between sales and marketing isn't only a nice to have, it's existential. So when that alignment is real, what actually changes in the day-to-day decisions? Can you share some concrete moments or story where the potential misalignment would have broken Snowflake's trajectory?
Well, yeah. I mean, in full transparency, I think it started off not so great in that, before Denise arrived. So I was at Snowflake for 2 years, or maybe even 3 years before Denise showed up. And so we didn't, I was our demand generation team. We didn't really have a demand generation team. But as we started to hire people, I would get into arguments on the definition of what a marketing qualified lead is, MQL. We don't need to go into depth on this, but I would get sideways with people about it. And then over time, when Denise came in, she said to me, "Hey, listen, I'm no longer going to talk to you about marketing qualified leads." Ultimately, she cares about what those are, how many are coming in. But she's like, "I want to talk about qualified meetings for your sales team. And that's how I'm going to judge the success of the marketing team." And that was great. And then on top of that, there's a top level metric that she shared with me was, if we're not driving revenue, if the revenue is not growing, then how the hell are we going to be successful? So ultimately, revenue was king. And I think she came in with that attitude. So whenever there was an issue with, whether or not we were getting enough qualified meetings or whether or not we were hitting our revenue goals, Denise and I would share with each other the challenges that we had. And I think that was the key element of our partnership at building the go-to-market machine at Snowflake. And I think a lot of companies, the founders sometimes think, well, marketing is over here and I need them to generate a bunch of leads. And then I'm going to point to those leads like a scoreboard and tell the sales team, you're not getting to enough of those leads. Or, hey, marketing, you're not generating enough leads. And a lot of founders who are engineers think that they want to create this like friction between sales and marketing. And that's the opposite instinct you should have. Is you should have a sales and marketing team that are kind of symbiotic, that come together and say, hey, ultimately, if we're hitting revenue, that's what matters. And that's how we approach things. And that's how we built a wonderful partnership over the tenure that we got to work together.
I love that, because that partnership also points to this idea of systems thinking, right? It's not what one team versus the other does, but rather what's the output of the whole system. And as part of that, one thing that comes strongly is that neither of you, nor you nor Denise, tried to win, quote unquote, leadership by authority. You coached your teams instead. So how did your approach to coaching leaders evolve as the company scaled, which of course can bring a lot of pressure?
Well, I think that was one of the nice parts, is because Denise and I had a very tight alignment at the top level of each of our organizations. We both worked for the CEO of the company. I had 4 different bosses. She had 3 different bosses at Snowflake, and we were a constant at Snowflake through those CEO transitions. And one of the things that we looked at is said, if there's a problem in one of our organizations, if someone comes with a mentality that is not great for us, we're going to give direct feedback to those people and to Denise. So if, for example, I hired somebody that was not respectful to her team, she would come to me and say, hey, Chris, you've got a problem and you've got to fix it. And I wouldn't just go and fire someone like, willy-nilly, but if there was someone that was not doing a good job or being disrespectful to her team, I would go and investigate that and fix that. And the same was true on the marketing side. There are multiple situations where either one of us have hired very senior people that didn't fit in very well into our culture. And that was really important to us to have something that we didn't want to have this animosity between sales and marketing. We wanted to have a partnership. And that was really stemmed from our partnership. And then we made sure that we held everyone accountable within each of our organizations to have the same thing.
Now, talking about that partnership, now you try to create a culture through those attitudes and those coaching opportunities. But when a company is growing as fast as Snowflake did, usually culture breaks before the systems break. So looking back, which early cultural behaviors do you think scaled well, and which ones did you have to intentionally redesign as the company moved from dozens to thousands of people?
I think it's actually probably the same answer for both. So I'm very much a velocity salesperson. So what that means is I put a hyper focus on new customer logos, so acquiring new logos. And so we thought the way that both Denise and I thought about things was in terms of new logo acquisition. And it goes to the kind of the macro statement from our investor of saying, hey, get market share before your competition gets product. And so when we came out of stealth mode, we knew we had a much better product than anything else on the market. And so then it was on us to go build a sales and marketing machine to go and get as many customers as possible. So what we focused on was this new logo acquisition. And I really, that's all we really talked a lot about, because we knew we had a very high net retention rate, meaning that customers who bought initially would buy again in 6, 9, 12 months, a lot more. So it was all about landing customers. And so when we were building the company, we centered around that, and that was amazing. That worked really well. I think a mistake we made is when we got ready to go public is we took our foot off the gas on the new logo acquisition, because there was this perception that not all new logos are equal, and that turned out to not be true. New logos mattered tremendously, and so as I was leaving Snowflake, and under the guide of Sridhar Ramaswamy, who's the current CEO of Snowflake, we redesigned the sales team again to go reinvigorate that new logo acquisition machine. And that's working quite well for Snowflake now. So that reorganization that we did in my last year there was something that was really needed, and something that we that was our kind of origins of the sales org. And then we forgot about it. We got, dumb and lazy kind of thing. And then we kind of went on and decided hey, we're going to go, get a little bit more fit and figure out how to go get the new logos again. And that's what we did. And that works really well.
This reminds me that success is never a good advisor about the future, right? Like, it's when you fail that you really learn, and then you get your act together again, and you reinvest in the things that worked, or you come up with other ideas depending on the context, but then you try to become better. And one of the things that you guys did is Snowflake could have positioned itself as a massive platform, which it is, much earlier, but it didn't. So how did you decide to keep the message narrow versus when to maybe focus more on the platform story? What advice would you have for founders and tech people out there who feel the pressure to sound, quote unquote, bigger than they really are?
So we looked at it, and this was part of the sale process for me of joining Snowflake. Prior to Snowflake, I had worked at a security software for a year and a half that got bought by my old employer at EMC, and it was in the identity and access management space. That space, the company that I was working for was a market leader, but that market was about $1 billion a year spent. Okay, so not a big market. And then when I joined Snowflake, the market that was at least available to us was for the enterprise data warehousing market. That was a $10 to $12 billion annual market, growing at like 30% year over year, and there was about 5,000 to 7,000 enterprise customers. So the difference is like $1 billion market versus a $10 to $12 billion market. That means you're going and selling to existing budgets, and selling to existing budgets is incredibly important because, if you look at large enterprises and you're selling to large enterprises, they go through annual planning processes. They go through like, hey, this is how much revenue we have to hit. This is how much money we can spend. And so, if you're coming in with an unbudgeted, line item, you have to then take money from something that they've already budgeted for. And so that was always hard in my previous job. But at Snowflake, because we knew that customers were spending that much money in the enterprise data warehousing space, I knew I could access existing budget. That meant instead of having a sales cycle of 9 to 18 months, I had a sales cycle of, anywhere from 3 to 6 months, which was a big difference, right? And so that became incredibly important. So to founders out there, eventually, I know you want to be a platform, right? I'm sure everyone wants to be a platform, and Snowflake certainly had an issue because we were so good at calling ourselves the enterprise data warehouse, the cloud enterprise data warehouse, that's how our competition tried to then basically corner us and say say, hey, they're great, they're a cute data warehouse because we were better than everyone else in the market, but here's how we're better for everything else. So just leave Snowflake in the corner kind of thing. And so we had to then work our way out of like being just the data warehouse, which is a great problem to have, meaning like you've gone and you've done a really good job of getting market share in a very large market, which we did. And then we had to then stretch our wings out and go after more, use cases and build out our technology to support, the data cloud and all this other stuff. But that was, I think, having a targeted market when you're initially launching the company that people are spending money on a product makes it easier for your sales team. That's what I'd say.
And actually, that brings me nicely to the next question, which is this idea of recognizing market and how the technology is evolving and bringing those two together. Now, many of the people in our audience, they are mostly from tech, but they see opportunities and they don't know maybe how to bring them up with the sales or the marketing team. They don't know how to express the value. What are some of the key lessons you've learned during that Snowflake story about how to allow and help technology people to understand the potential and the value that could be created in the market and then bring those two together?
I mean, I think that the hardest part for us, like when we're building the company, we were all of a sudden, like everyone had been used to buying a fixed resources, because this is back in 2013, 2014, 2015, where the cloud was still, Amazon was certainly great, but it wasn't what it is today. And I think there was still this mindset from a lot of CIOs that thought that they would leave data in their data centers. And so we would go in and say, hey, we have this consumption-based product that is not a fixed amount of CPUs. And explaining to a procurement person and a legal person who has a fixed budget, saying, hey, go out and use this product that is variable in usage. I would liken it to, buying a cell phone plan that you go up and down, and it wasn't a fixed amount of money every month. And so that was certainly very interesting of explaining a consumption model and selling a consumption model to people that tried to really force us into, selling in the old way of saying, hey, we want just a fixed budget. And we knew that we couldn't do that because our underlying cost of goods was Amazon, and Amazon is elastic architecture. So that elastic architecture allowed customers to do things so differently than they had ever done in previous worlds. Like you would load data on the weekends, and then you would let your analysts look at that data during the week, and you wouldn't load data during the week because you wouldn't want to disrupt the system. And we changed that dynamic in a material way. You could because we had this like different architecture and elastic architecture, we had customers that would spin up 1,000 servers for like 4 hours, load a bunch of data, all the while their users were doing analytics against that same data set, and they were not impacted. There was no performance impact. So those kind of things, it was people, first of all, didn't believe us. There was a very much a mindset that like, this isn't real. So I had to then get customers to try the product. And we had to, I always would say, like, don't believe anything I say, try it. And we would set up proof of concepts of people to try it, or pilots for people to try it. But that was hard, and that was fun at the same time. That was some of the fun things that we did.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of other very interesting stories in the book. The book is Make It Snow. Was it From Millions to Billions? That's the subtitle. How did you come up with that subtitle?
I mean, so we had an investor who was a ex San Francisco 49er football player, and he came in one day, and he's a super nice guy, and he said to us, one day, like, I was explaining to him how the business is going really well, and he texts me, he says, hey Chris, make it snow. You're making it snow. And so like we kicked around making it snow because our stock ticker on the New York Stock Exchange is SNOW. And so we're like, hey, everything that is at Snowflake, whether it's a conference room, it might be a ski mountain, but different products, all the products are snow something. So it was just very, on brand. And that I'll give 100% credit to Denise on that. Luckily she's a world-class marketer, and I didn't choose the name, and she said, this is going to work. And so I think that's how we, instead of making it rain, and that's a thing that people use in sales. Hey, you're making it rain money. We're making it snow, right? And so that was the same thing. So
Make It Snow, From Zero to Billions, how Snowflake scaled its go-to-market organization, and hyper-growth and coaching and leadership, lots of lessons in the book. But Chris, if people want to know more about you and the work that you're doing, where should they go now?
Well, certainly read the makeitsnowbook.com. That you could go to that and buy the book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or something like that. And then certainly follow me on LinkedIn. I'm currently an advisor to a bunch of different startups, and I help them. I really focus my energy on early stage startups that haven't built go to market, and they're early founders that want to do that. That's what I genuinely enjoy, and that's how I spend my energy of helping early stage startups build their organizations. And then I also help out one of the venture firms that invested in Snowflake early on in the iconic venture team that led our Series D round.
Absolutely. So makeitsnow.com. The book is Make It Snow, available on your usual book outlets. Chris, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us and for being so generous with your time and your knowledge.
Vasco, thank you so much for having me. It was great to talk to you.
All right, I hope you liked this episode. But before you hit next episode, here's the deal.
This podcast is powered by people like you, the members who wanted more than just inspiration. They wanted real tools and real connection to people who are practicing Agile every day. We're talking access to over 700 hours of Agile Gold, CTO level strategy talks, summit keynotes, live workshops, e-courses, deep dive interviews, books, and if you're into no estimates, we got the pioneers of no estimates in those deep dive interviews as well. Agile business intelligence, creating product visions, coaching your product owner courses, you name it. You'll get invites to monthly live Q&As with Agile pioneers and practitioners, plus a private Slack community, which is free of all of that AI slop you see everywhere, and of course, without the flame wars. It's a community of practitioners that want to learn and thrive together. It's the best place to connect with community and learn together. So if this podcast has helped you before, imagine what you will get from this podcast membership. So head on over to scrummastertoolbox.org/membership and join the community that's shaping the future of Agile. And we have so much for you. So check out all the details at scrummastertoolbox.org/membership, because listening is great, it's important, but doing it together, that's next level. I'll see you in the community Slack.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.